Everybody, are
It's
we?
on now.
Well, I'm going to reset and say welcome everybody to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. Beside me is Terry White. He spent his entire life of prime working career working on the space shuttle from 1979, right, till its end in 2011.
78 till it ended in 2011.
Well,
Yes.
I don't want to cheat you out of a year of that wonderful era there, my friend. Of course, if you've watched Stay Curious for a while, Terry's been involved over 2 years sharing his one of a kind stories as the orbital processing chief there. And Terry, we're glad to have you here today. We're going to talk about the Vomit Comet, all right? And Terry's going to share some stories about uh, things I don't know about yet because really I just bring Terry on and we start talking and have a good time. And we have your questions to answer if you give some. And I have Selvin Trotter on our board today. We've got our intern Logan couldn't be here today. So thank you, Selvin's our bookkeeper. And would you hand me my phone over there, Selvin? Because I didn't bring my smart tablet in, and I wanted to see our who's commenting today. And of course, we are sponsored and going to be sponsored on Stay Curious by Chuck Jeffries and his Bid Again Auctions. Okay, Chuck is our chief operating officer here at the museum. Most importantly, he's been conducting the the auctions that we've had uh, for over 7 years here that sustain in a big way our museum. And we'll be informing you about the next one coming up. And let me get into my. Uh,
Well, while Mark's getting ready, as usual, we look forward to your questions. It helps me with the show when you send in your questions so we can see exactly what you're interested in and answer them for you.
that's why I'm getting my phone up here. We do. Thank you, Terry. I'm going to put Karen's image up there. Of course, we've lost our leader Sunday. And this just being Tuesday, it still hurts. And you got to know Karen through
Yes,
your
yeah.
appearances here. She was lined up behind Anita and Connie for your hugs
Yes.
there as usual. And comment about Karen as hard as it is, I'm sure.
It's just a great lady, went out of her way to support the museum and to work with the people here. So everybody appreciated her.
Absolutely. And we have posted that their funeral will be August 31st on Saturday. And those of you that come to the funeral home, we will have a celebration of her life here at the museum. That those arrangements have been made by her husband, Mark, her husband of over 25 years. So you go to our American Space Museum page and you can see the uh, tribute written to Karen. And I'm going to talk about Karen tomorrow and read to you what her husband Mark had put on the obituary. And I've asked our employees here if they've got something that they want to share, or any of the volunteers, please feel free to write it out, or if they want to come on live. Everybody's camera shy around here, so
Yes.
you and me are the extroverts, Terry. So, but I'm putting up my cell phone here with YouTube. So if you do have a comment, but Selvin's here to help us out. But yeah, we just can't believe Karen's gone at age 65. And I'll talk about her and a little bit about how she inspired all of us. So she was really a calming person in any atmosphere around business tables I've seen her at, but so passionate about preserving the birth of the American space age, yet very much an outsider. Did not work for the industry. So we love you, Karen, and we're missing you every day. So. Well, let's look at also John McBride passed away, and Terry, you tell us a little bit about Mr. McBride is an astronaut, but he
Yeah,
also
he was the first astronaut from the state of West Virginia. And for a long time, he was the only astronaut from the state of West Virginia. But John was former Navy test pilot and that. But most of my association with John was he flew in the days when we didn't associate a lot with the astronauts when they were in the OPF the orbiter processing facility. Most of the training the astronauts get is out in Houston or other places in the country or around the world. They don't get a lot of training here because they can't train on the spacecraft while we're getting it ready for flight. So at any rate, my association with John was out at the visitor center after the end of the shuttle program. He was the resident astronaut out there. And so him and I talked quite a bit. He would come up and ask me questions about the orbiter to pass on to the guests that he escorted around and that. And he would always bring special guests up there and say, hey, you have questions about this vehicle, this is the guy you need to talk to. So yeah, we drank a few cups of coffee together.
Big John, as he was known there. And Terry and I looked up. There's an astronaut, Morgan, that spent 250 days on the space station. He's from West Virginia, and one of the Carmenauts on the Virgin Galactic is from West Virginia. But Big John's wake is going to be at his hometown. He's born in Charleston, grew up in Beckley. I'm not sure where that is going to be. You have to look that up, and we'll post that. But also on
It's
August
just
31st.
down the road from Charleston. I go through it every year.
Yeah, on 77.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. I've been many trips up 77 through West Virginia, going up to family up in northeast Ohio, actually. And all right, you're coming up there, Terry. Let's see if I can do it again without messing up here. But yes, tremendous loss. We also lost Bob Giffen in the last week. He was a Apollo technician that hung off the side of the Saturn V rocket and put insulation in it on the pad so they didn't have to take it into the VAB. He was another great guy. And Terry, that's what our museum is about, is the space worker. Yes. And you know that. That's why we enjoy having you on, because you can tell us exactly from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Yeah, we had to do that in the early days of Shuttle. We had to send a technician in a bosun's chair at the pad down between the external tank and the belly of the orbiter to go inspect something down there. So lower him down in a bosun's chair.
Wow, that's interesting. There we've got you all on there today. Steve Jokums up at Lake County Spaceport on the shores of Lake Michigan in Illinois says hello to me, Selvin, Logan, and everyone. And she says a special hello to you, Terry White. You met Steve at the Shuttle Fest last time. I got a big announcement to make about Shuttle Fest here in just a minute. Lynn Feathers, hello from Morgantown, West Virginia, Terry.
Yes.
That's your sister?
No, she was my admin.
Oh,
for
okay.
Years, and she was a granny to my kids when they were growing up.
Well, Lynn Feather, love having you along here. If you got a question to stump the expert here, try that. We have Travis, hello from Poland. Hello there, Travis. And Dean Babcock, he's a real smart space geek. He says, hello, everyone. Nice to see Terry back.
The Travis in Poland is my son.
Oh, that's your son. Okay.
He's been on the show. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, right.
Yes.
Well, hello there, young man. Yes, he's been on the show with his sister, Rebecca. And Rebecca, I am looking forward to that gumbo that we have here in the freezer that Dad brought me. I'm very appreciative of that. I bet you guys aren't appreciative that Louisiana was ranked as the 50th of the bottom ranked states. Florida was number 2 behind Massachusetts on some poll I saw yesterday. Yeah, and they said Louisiana's the 50th. And I go, hell no, that can't be right.
What was it? Food related? Or
No, just the best place to live.
Oh, okay.
Type of thing. All right. You got to like gumbo and gators and everything Louisiana to live there for sure.
And crawdads.
And you know, the Louisianans, they don't care about that.
No.
They're like Texans. Just stay out if you don't like us. All right. We're happy.
Yeah, we're happy by ourselves.
We're happy by ourselves. Absolutely. Robert Laws up in Dundee, Scotland. You know our good friend here, Robert. Come up with a good question about the Vomit Comet. Have you ridden the Vomit Comet? We're going to want to know about that. Tom Celentano says hi. And Lynn Feather says, you can't stump Terry, he will stump you. So that's a good way to get the show off on a lighthearted note today on a real tragic week here at the American Space Museum. But we'll soldier on. Hello, Doug Forrest. Good to see you there. So I'll refer back and forth there, Selvin. You tip me off if we got a question there. And yeah, you can get on that UCAC family microphone if you want there. So, uh, what is the orbital processing facility? And we call you the chief. What does that mean?
The orbital processing facility is basically the hangar or the garage where we get the orbiters, which is 1/3 of the space shuttle. The space shuttle is made of the orbiter, the external tank, and the 2 solid rocket boosters. So basically, the orbiter is the one that carries the payload, carries the astronauts, and it's the one that comes back after the mission is accomplished in space. The boosters land out in the ocean, and the tank burns up or falls into the Indian Ocean, the other side of Africa. But that's where we do all the mechanical, electrical, get all the preps done to install the payload. We basically service the vehicle from nose to tail, top to bottom, inside and out, and get it ready for its next flight.
And we'll see a couple pictures of that. That's why we, tongue-in-cheek, call it the Shuttle Garage. And these high-tech mechanics are in there. It's just an amazing process. There was more than one OPF.
Correct. In the beginning, there was 2, but after we realized how long it would take to turn one around from one flight to the next, and we had 4 orbiters, so sometimes we were taking one out of the hangar and go parking it in the VAB, while we brought another one in from flight because we had to get them in a hangar right away to deservice them and get the hazardous commodities and that off. But yeah, so then NASA said, well, we want to do modifications to the orbiters and want to do it here, so we built OPF-3, and it was to do modifications on the vehicle and then they realized, nope, we needed it to be a full operating bay, so we took it offline, put all the hardware in there to go deservice an orbiter and that, and so we had 3 operating orbiter processing
And
facilities.
we see those today.
And
Where?
we go 2, they're still out there, 3 of them. Boeing has OPF-3 now.
But their location is.
Yeah, their location is west of the VAB, east of State Road 3, and basically the north or almost up to the south end of the runway. But yeah, so they're.
So you see these three buildings the same size. Those are it.
Yes.
And they're being used today. One's kind of top secret.
Yeah, well, 2 OPF-1 and 2 is part of the X-37 program.
All right.
So they have those.
That's
and
the mini shuttle that would fit in the shuttle cargo bay, but looks like a mini shuttle.
Yep.
Orbiting the Earth right now. We've got one of them.
And I don't have the security numbers to go in there, so I don't know what it's like inside.
All right. All right.
What they've done to reconfigure it. But then OPF-3, Boeing has that to produce their capsules. So.
And you see that on the side there, Boeing Starliners,
Yes.
where they process that. And that will probably be up for rent here pretty soon. We're not going to comment about that.
I do get to go in there occasionally.
There you go. All right. All right. Well, that's setting the stage here for that Terry knows what he's talking about. We've got 9 beautiful shuttles in the month of August, Terry. You've got STS 118 on there.
Yeah.
And I've met Mastricchio. I like saying astronaut Rick Mastriccio's name there, spacewalker. That took a truss up to the space station. Only 9 shuttles in the month. That's one of the lowest months of the year. Did the weather have something to do with that? Because if you lived in Florida, you know that every afternoon from 2 to 5, you could probably expect a rain shower somewhere.
Yeah. And actually, the rain shower wasn't an issue except for landings. It's a big issue in that. And we didn't like to roll out in the middle of storms and that. But no, it may have been that this is a hot part of the year and that, so there's less planned for that time. But I was never part of the planning group that decided when the initial time was to launch different missions. So I don't know why August was low. So.
Well, we love talking about our shuttle era, the 30-year decade that still influences us mightily here, a quarter way through the 21st century. We've talked about 43 and 28 with my friend Jim Adamson on board there. 43 did the first email from space last week on August 9th. Yeah, Jim Adamson and Shannon Luce had sent an email to she's a Hall of Fame this year. I know her. Anyway, sent Marsha Ivins.
Okay.
Sent an email to her at Houston in 1991, I think, was that. And you got about 3 hard hat missions to the space station there. 41, our good friend Charlie Walker's on that one. And also 8, which is behind you. Those were space trucks. Those were the last 2 of the month here, 41D and STS-8. That was when we envisioned the shuttle to be so efficient taking satellites to space that NASA said, forget your single stick rockets. You're not going to need them. The shuttle's going to do everything. And you were part of that boldness then. Were you like hearing that and going, no, wait a minute, they don't understand how hard this is?
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
They didn't realize exactly what it took to turn one around. And then we were never allowed to treat them, even though after the first 5 flights, they were supposed to be called an operational vehicle, but we still had to treat them like an experimental vehicle all the time. We had to restore them to as close to brand new as we possibly could, and we constantly had to do modifications to them. And you have a question for us?
Yeah, go ahead, Selvin, on that
Actually,
USAC family microphone.
Steve has a question. When NASA decommissioned the OPFs, did they keep any of the artifacts from them that were important to the orbiter processing unit? Or processing work?
Yes, a lot of the artifacts, there were museums that wanted them. Of course, the Smithsonian wanted a lot of them and that, but different astronauts, colleges wanted them, so they were distributed to various places around the country.
Travis also has a question. Why did they build the Vomit Comet, and when was it first used?
It was actually used all the way back in Apollo. I think it was maybe even used in Gemini and that. But there were different aircraft that were used by NASA, and it was to give the astronauts a weightless experience before they actually went to space, and to get them to train in a weightless environment. Now, they train in the huge swimming pool in Houston, which is close as you can get to weightless and that, and it's big enough to hold replicas of the space station so they can go out and actually work on it and that. But they wanted to put someone in an actual weightless environment where they weren't underwater to allow them to practice and understand what they were going to experience. So it's short periods of weightlessness, then you get weight again, then you go weightless again. But it's a chance, and until I flew, and I didn't fly in the NASA Vomit Comet, I flew in the 0G. It's a commercial company that takes people up. You can go up in it if you want. It's not an inexpensive
We'll tell you how
thing.
much too.
Yeah,
We're gonna tell you what you can.
Yeah.
Dave Stangy's gonna want to throw a big party and take about 28 of us up there. I think I'll tell him what that's gonna cost him.
Yeah. But the reason I got to go in it is the state of Florida paid for a bunch of engineers, quality people, safety people, technicians to go up, because they were the people that were going to be designing and building the future spacecraft after the end of the shuttle program. So if you're going to go build something and make it operational for somebody, and you have no idea what they experience while they're up in space, then it makes it very difficult for you to design something. So the state funded this for a bunch of people from Kennedy Space Center to go up and fly it. They came to me and asked me, would I fly to be an evaluator? I didn't have to perform any tasks, but I had to monitor people performing tasks and see what their challenges were, that type of thing. And everybody that was supposed to fly and perform tasks had to go to a week of training. It was like 3 hours a night for training about what they were going to be expected to do, what it was like for weightless working conditions and that. And so it was pretty interesting. I learned a lot of things in that week of training that I had not been exposed to before, because my job was getting the hardware ready. My job was not, working arm in arm with the crew. They had other organizations that did that. But it was pretty interesting. And then when we actually got to go fly, a lot of the people on there that I was evaluating came to me and brought up the thing. They said, well, wait a minute, it's not fair that he doesn't have to perform any tasks. So I said, all right. So there was another evaluator on board, but he could not adjust to the weightless, so he went back and strapped himself back in the seat. So, I had to do it all, but it was pretty interesting. And
How many times did you fly?
I flew once, but we
Okay.
did
15.
15. Yeah.
15 loops, and we'll talk about little details of this here
Yeah.
as
But,
we go
but
along.
someone Ann Miklos,
Yeah.
yeah, she was on the flight with me.
Okay.
And she's a younger female engineer, and I enjoyed picking her up and sending her down the length of the fuselage, rotating it. She just went down there and had somebody at the other end to catch her.
That's cool. Yeah,
But-
we have to ask Ann about that. She's got her artwork here, a good friend of our museum.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. Thank you for your questions here. We are going to answer them. Travis is up there in Poland. That's Terry's son up there. He's tell us what his rank is.
He's a major in the U.S. Army, and so he works in the space side of the U.S. Army, and that's all he'll tell me.
Yeah. And glad to have you on board there, son. Appreciate you here with Dad. Going to ask a couple other pertinent questions about the Vomit Comet in a minute here. Tom Celentano points out that STS-8, glad that you like our N41D, were launched on the same date, August 30th, as was STS-28 and the one you have on your shirt, 118, were launched on August 8th. 8 years apart. STS-28 is a DoD mission that Jim Adamson said he couldn't talk to me about, so quit asking. He basically said, I can't tell you anything about him, Mark, quit asking me. And then STS-118 was an important EVA truss on the space station up there. Well, let's look at a couple other things before we get into the Vomit Comet there. Thank you, Carlton Bailey. He's watching. This is in August. I think it was August 9th or the 8th of August. That's why he sent this to us. Carlton took this picture, and that's Columbia in the foreground on STS-35. And in the background is Atlantis on STS-38. And we talked about this. Tell us the circumstances here, Terry.
Okay, 35 was out at the pad and came up with a issue that they had to return all the way back to the OPF. So they had to leave the pad, go back to the VAB, Vehicle Assembly Building, destack from the tank and boosters, take it all the way back into the orbiter processing facility to fix the issue. Well, 38 was on its way out for its flight, so they passed. Got this rare photo of the two of them, and that it went out to the other pad. 38 flew, and then 35, after we had fixed its condition in the OPF, which I forget exactly what it was, then it went back out to the
helium,
pad.
you told me.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
hydrogen leak.
Yeah.
STS-35 was Astro 1, launched on December 2nd, and 38 was launched ahead, right the month ahead of 35. Boy, the numbers got out of whack. There's something serious. 38 was launched November 15th, 1990. Then 35 was launched December 1990. And 38 was an Atlantis DoD mission with Covey and Culbertson flying that on there. So that was 38, launched before 35, and then they launched 37, and then they launched 39. And again, refresh our viewers' memories of why the numbers aren't.
Well, the numbers are the planning numbers. When they start planning out a mission, they assign it a number. Well, for different reasons, that mission may not fly. There may be an issue with the payload, so that mission gets held up, but they don't change the number. That's once they assign it a number, that's it. That's all the funding and everything, all the traceability is for that. So that they bump it out of order, someone else flies ahead of it. It could be a problem with the vehicle. It could be a problem with hurricanes that we pull back for, and then something else takes priority over it.
Mm-hmm.
The space telescopes, that happened several times because that wasn't a priority mission. So someone else went ahead of them because theirs was a priority mission. So
Great explanation there. The traceability, I think, is
and
the
the
key of
accountability
yeah.
and accountability. It's those people with the funds.
That's right. And that's what the number system is. 41D was 1984 fiscal year. The 1 meant launched from Kennedy Space Center because 2 was going to be Vandenberg, and we never did that. And the D is like ABCD and the launch manifest, if
Yeah,
you will.
and so many people got confused with the numbering system that they went back and says, okay, we'll just call them STS.
Yeah, wish they'd done all along, but
So
there you are in front of beautiful Atlantis. There, don't know if you remember the opportunity there.
it looks like it could be the last
Yeah, it
rollout.
looks like you got
Yeah.
the Alpha and the Omega of STS 1 and 135 on your
Yep,
shirt
so
there.
that had to be 135
There,
rollout.
and
So.
just love I look every time I go into the Atlantis building, I look up and I look at that hatch, and I think of our friend Mike Baker looking out that window, and just another astronauts. It's just an amazing sight to see. There's their orbital processing facilities.
Yeah, this
Should
is
have
a
had these
photo.
up a little bit earlier,
Yeah,
but
this is a photograph of coming in from landing. So all the red hoses you see is the air conditioning being piped into the vehicle. It's being supplied by a huge semi truck that's supplying with power, everything it needs. But it's towed in. You can see the small door by the number 2 up there to clear the vertical tail. But it goes into all of the structure, gets positioned in the right spot, and then we actually lift the orbiter up to what we call its maintenance height. And we have 2 spacecraft operators that are in there operating the vehicle as it comes back from the runway. We change them out just before we go in the building. Now, those 2 are captive in there because until we get them up to the maintenance height, we cannot open the side hatch and get them out of the vehicle.
And as you notice there, the stabilizer or the rudder assembly has its own hole cut out there. And you can see that as you take the KSC tour going around those buildings. Find that interesting. Of all the hangars you see for aircraft all over the world,
Yeah.
Why did they cut a hole in the stern to just having one big door?
Well, we have 2 big doors because they translate. They open out left and right and that. But they are some very large doors themselves. But to stabilize them against the hurricanes and that, there was no sense adding that much door all the way up at the top.
Okay.
Yeah, why not just make a small door just to clear the vertical tail? There's no other thing that we're taking in there. And we don't even take the payloads in through this one. We have another door at the other end of the orbiter processing facility where we bring the payloads in. So these doors are just to take the orbiter itself in and out.
Well, the hurricane, that makes sense. I keep
yeah,
forgetting every
yeah.
building's got to have a hurricane.
Well, and they have huge
Situation.
latches in those doors that actually latch down into metal fixtures in the concrete to secure those doors for the high winds.
I'll bet they do. Talk about that maybe later in the hurricane season next month. We've done a show about some preparations and stuff, but I never heard about the latches at the bottom here, Terry. Well, let's talk about the Vomit Comet, all right? NASA flew zero-gravity flights on various aircraft for many years. In 1959, Project Gemini astronauts trained in a 131 Samaritan aircraft dubbed the Vomit Comet. Now, the profile, I'm going to show you a Mercury picture here in just a minute. There's the Mercury one there. So I'm looking at what I got here. We'll see some different pictures where NASA used it, but I got the name Vomit Comet. Why? And we have this Lori Taylor's asking, who named it and why?
I don't know. That was before my time, like he said, 1959. So I don't know how it got that, other than probably the first people going up in it,
got sick.
Yeah, probably got sick. I mean, we had people on the flight I flew on that got sick. So yeah, even though we told them to take an anti-motion pill and that, no, I'll be all right. As soon as they get up there, you got a bag?
Here's what it does. Whatever the aircraft is, from a stabilized level altitude of 20,000 feet, about 5 miles, the aircraft increases altitude. During this phase, the weight is 8 times greater than the normal weight for 24 seconds. So you can have G-forces of a launch.
You know,
for example.
1.8 Gs is what you experience.
And for 24 seconds, then the crew performs a maneuver called injection. The aircraft trajectory is piloted to follow a kind of parabola, and power thrust is reduced. The vertical load factor goes from 1.8 gravity to 0 gravity for about 22 seconds. The first pilot adjusts the control stick tilt to maintain the vertical load factor at 0, while the second pilot maintains the roll angle at 0. The mechanic adjusts the thrust of the engines to cancel the longitudinal load factor. An exit at 1.8 G symmetrical with the entry phase is then performed on the descending part of the parabola to return the aircraft to a stabilized altitude level within 20 seconds. Parabolic flights are a gateway to weightlessness. They are dedicated to scientific experiments and to space equipment testing technology. All right.
So as well as testing the astronauts, some of the things that they're going to carry into space, they take up in the 0G environment to test them and see how they react to that.
Then I didn't think about this, Terry, but they just don't do 0G. This aircraft can complete weightlessness that lasts approximately 25 seconds for 0G, but passengers can have a Martian gravity, about a third of the Earth's gravity, for about 30 seconds, while simulating lunar gravity, about a sixth of the Earth's gravity, can last for 40 seconds.
So depending on how they do it and what speed is, you can get a longer semi-weightless period.
In the general consensus of a story I pulled off space.com says a large percentage of passengers wind up ill. It's about a third rule. About a 1/3 get violently ill, the next third moderately ill, and the final third not at all. So 2/3 of the people probably vomit, and if once I vomit, I feel better. Maybe that's what you need. Of course, space sickness we've all heard about, incredibly hidden from public in many ways. You would be surprised to know that Frank Borman was very ill with space sickness on the way to the moon on Apollo 8, but he got better in the 3-day journey.
And most astronauts will say, especially on their first flight, is they feel ill for a day or two, but then it goes away. And then lots of times on their second flight, their body realizes, oh, I've been here before, I know how this works, and they don't have near the sickness. But some of them says they wouldn't care if they were sick the entire mission. It's just they're getting to do something that they have strived for years to do.
Everybody gets over it, it seems. Dan Durda was a astronaut trainee at one time. He's an he's an astronomer. I met Dan Durda, and he's with the Southwest Research Institute, and he's flown microgravity flights for research, and he says that they are an amazing out-of-this-world experience. That feeling is the most magical, amazing feeling. There is absolutely no analog for it. It's addicting, said Dan Durda. Did you feel that way?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I'd have done it again in a heartbeat. I asked them if they needed somebody to evaluate their next flight.
Well, you go up like that and you come down like that. All right. And
it was funny to watch the people who were having so much fun being weightless. They weren't listening when they said, okay, we're going to now gain weight. So, and you're gaining almost twice your body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you're going to all of a sudden feel like you weigh 230 pounds or 240 pounds. So yeah, and so you're drifting and you're floating up what we would call the ceiling, but you're up high, and all of a sudden when you gain weight, you come down hard. So I'd have to reach out and grab somebody. I said, they told you we were coming down. They had handholds, but people were having so much fun in the weightless environment that they would bounce off the floor. So
there's a group of ASCANs in 2003. I think that's Peggy Whitson. ASCANs were astronaut candidates.
Correct.
That hadn't gotten their wings yet, or they could still wash out of the program. Here we're talking in the 1960 era with a couple astronauts in there. I believe that's Wally Schirra is the one highest up there. They got, you got to have it, some cushions in there bouncing around.
Everything is
like
padded,
that
yes.
In there. I hope, and there is astronaut David Scott. He's 92 years old, the commander of Apollo 15, practicing on his Apollo 8 mission, where he was going to do a serious spacewalk with a mobile man maneuvering unit early in the program. If that's not the backup, that'd be Neil Armstrong in the commander's seat there. Now, this gives you a good idea of how they actually used it to train
Yeah,
astronauts.
yeah.
You've got a simulated Gemini spacecraft there with the doors and everything, and he's trying to figure out how to get out and so forth.
Yeah, and in the orbiter, we had an airlock that they would go into and then go out. But in the Gemini capsules and that, they were exposing the other astronaut who was inside. So while one would be out on a spacewalk, then the other one is still being exposed to.
Couldn't find any pictures of the Apollo guy. Well, this is the only one of the shuttle era. And this is Gordon Fullerton, all right, pilot of STS-3, learning how to use a spacesuit. So I have the comment, Terry. One, it was he was Fullerton, and Jack Lawson was the commander, I
Yes.
believe. They landed at New Mexico. Neither one of them were planning to do an EVA, so why would they be doing this?
Well, they would carry EVA suits even if there wasn't a planned EVA, because if there was some issue on the outside of the vehicle where they wanted you to go out and check on it, you needed a suit to go do that. So they fit the suits to them. They practice with the suits and that. Most of the time in the shuttle program, they practice with the suits in the pool. The suits are extremely heavy, so they're very difficult to maneuver around in on the ground. And astronauts say they're even difficult to maneuver with in space. But that is your protection system while you're out in space.
And we should give shout out to Marie Fullerton, his widow, great person, and she comes to Space Coast at the Astronaut Hall of Fame. And I'm going to send this picture to Marie, although she's probably got it. You never know on there. But so there was basically the whole trip was a 5-hour trip. They tried to do 15 parabolas,
Yes.
15 times you would be able to
Yes.
deal, and that's quite a bit, really. So you would be able to do a maneuver like this, 15 times.
Yeah, and you would
figure
be
out-
able to, you do part of it, and then you continue on to the next, when you go to the next weightless again, and the next one, and the next one.
because you got about
Yeah.
30 seconds to
Yeah.
do something.
Yep.
But I'll bet that seems like a long time once you get used to doing a task in a.
It does,
There-
but especially when you're concentrating on the task, you don't realize,
Mhm.
that the time's going by.
This is astronaut Stu Rosa, who's passed away, practicing to do a moon to Earth EVA as the backup for Apollo 17. Now, Stu Rosa was a command module pilot on 14, the third lunar landing, and very underrated mission after Apollo 13. I think
Yes.
14. That was an ultimate return to flight, and people don't realize that. If that had failed, no more going to the moon. But he's got a film canister there that Al Worden and let's see, Tom Mattingly did that EVA, and then on 17 he was the backup for I see his face, but I'll have to pull up the Ron Evans. So he's practicing when Ron Evans did as his backup. And wow, you forget about the training.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to spend 5 hours putting you in a loop to loop, and
Yeah.
you're going to practice getting that out.
Well, he's training to go get the film canister from outside the vehicle
Mhm.
before they come back to Earth to re-enter, because the film wouldn't have survived.
Exactly.
So they had to do a EVA on the way back from the moon to go retrieve the film.
in the service module,
Yes.
the back part of the
Yep.
cylinder of the Apollo command module and service module structure, though. So, well, wanted to say that here's some people in space. NASA had their own outfit for a while, and then other people got in the act, particularly the movie industry. The Apollo 13 extensively, that 1995 movie, had a lot of scenes aboard NASA's KC-135 parabolic aircraft. Then other companies got involved, and the most popular one, I think, is Zero Gravity Corporation, became the first company in the United States to offer zero-G flights to the public using Boeing 727 jets. Each flight has around 15 parabolas, lasts 5 hours. Clients can choose all kinds of things. And I'll get to some of your questions there in a minute there, as we're setting up. If you want to fly to space, you can get your first steps to space. And it is, they do have a fee for it. Now, it used to be, Virginia-based zero-G. It was Virginia-based. I think they moved to California. But they sold tickets in the beginning at $5,000. All right. That you can't go there for that amount of money now. Celebrities such as director James Cameron, Star Trek actor George Takei, who's solo on that, Virgin Galactic's billionaire founder Sir Richard Branson have all taken zero-G planes, as you have, Terry. Stephen Hawking, the renowned physicist, flew on G-Force One. All right, and before he died, he was a ALS patient, the genius that he was. So, yep, you can book your wedding up there, any kind of party. Here's people letting go a bunch of stuff up there, zero-G, to celebrate something. You can have a wedding up there. Look at this couple. It's toasting champagne in space, all right? And but the pilots, they get the most experience in zero-G.
Yes.
How lucky are they? If you know a pilot of one of these space aircraft up there, love to talk to them because they're just having a ball up there.
Yeah, and they come here. They fly them out of Tycho.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, that's where I flew out of. So.
Oh, you did? Okay. Yeah. So they announced where they're going to have it, and so you flew out of Tycho's, our local airport here, in there. So how much is it going to cost? Dave Stange wants to know. He's up there in Michigan. He just retired. He's got and Julie, they're looking to have some fun. Well, I pulled off the website. It costs $9,900 plus tax per person. Selvin, did you hear that? $9,900 plus tax. All right. God, that's another $1,000
That's front
easy.
pocket money for him.
That's right. And Stange, you want to take 28 of your best friends and one dedicated photographer. That's in the middle. That'll cost you $292,000, which is really no bargain. That's about the same price as $9,900 a piece. But Dave, if you book it 60 days in advance, they'll take off $20,000. So a little over $250,000, $272,000.
Yeah.
And Dave Stange's going to take us to space.
And you'll find out who really is your friends because they'll all contact you.
That's right up there. On there, but that, everything's got a price, and poor little old me sitting here, Terry. There's some people that can afford this quite easily out there.
Yeah, there is.
And they do.
I don't know them, but they're out there.
Yeah, they do. They obviously do on there. So now you know, okay? And just to round this out, yes, an adult entertainment film was done in one of these things. Also, a rock group called OK Go recorded their music video Upside Down and Inside Out in one of these. It involved aerobatic choreography created especially for the zero gravity environment. And the Mythbusters, they use the Zero-G Corporation. You all look back at the Mythbusters rerun. Great shows by Adam Savage and Jamie Heineman. They did use the Zero-G to replicate the moon's gravity and prove that the help on their Apollo moon landing conspiracy show on there. So
now something I want to pass on is since everyone else on the flight wanted me to have to perform a task.
Yes.
We did actually have the first aid kit from an orbiter with us on flight to show them, what it was like to open one up in zero gravity, even though everything is compartmentalized and stays in its place in that. But I had to put a Band-Aid on a patient.
Did you?
Yeah. And you think, okay, putting a Band-Aid on is really simple, but remember.
So you got a Band-Aid down.
Well, yeah.
Is this the one that flew?
No.
Oh.
But remember, your patient is floating around. Okay, so you have to hang on to your patient in that. Now you have to get your Band-Aid open. Well, first you have to open up the wipes to wipe off the blood and that. And guess what? You can't turn these loose because they're going to go drift.
I got a wound right here. You can
Okay.
pretend we're in Zero-G.
Okay, they're gonna drift around. I can't just set these down because they'll drift around and it becomes FOD. It could damage something that could impact the mission. That so
Right.
then you're trying to get the Band-Aid open, and there goes your patient again. So you're grabbing hold of your patient, and there's no
I'm
place really
spinning.
to secure them. In the orbiter, there would be a place, but guess what? That blood is going all over the place. That blood's not running down your face. It's going all over the place, potentially short. So, yeah. So then your patients, you got to grab them back in it. You get the Band-Aid open, and now you still have to hang on to the paperwork. And then you have to pull the tabs off of it, and you can't let them go. And there goes your patient again, drifting all over the place. Then eventually you get all the things off, and you get the Band-Aid on there on your patient, and now you are done.
And there's blood all over the place.
In real life, there would be. And
Look at all this waste here. That's a great point, Terry.
all of that is going to be drifting around and clogging your filters and damaging equipment, and trying to go up your nose when you're breathing. So, yeah, there's a lot of other things to working in zero gravity than you don't think about, even on simple tasks like applying a Band-Aid.
Well, great demonstration there. Okay. And that can be an analogy of the Band-Aid on my heart right now. But thank you all for watching today. Hope you enjoyed this little bit of looking at the Vomit Comet and some factoids as well as some actual experience there. Terry, we've got a question from Gary Gerald. Where were the EVA suits stored during the launch and landing of a shuttle?
The EVA suits were stored in the tunnel and the tunnel adapter. That's in the earlier days, it was stored down on the middeck with the astronauts and that. But once we started installing the tunnel to dock to space station and that, they would be stored inside the tunnel. And then once they got up there, they would and get ready to do an EVA, they would take them out of the tunnel and get the astronauts into the suit. And that was a very strenuous process, getting an astronaut in the suit. I mean, the suit is weightless, so it doesn't weigh the 300 pounds it weighs down here on Earth, but it's still getting them in there, getting it all tested before you put them back in the tunnel so they can go out and do an EVA.
Very complicated, not just like you see in the movies, jumping in a spacesuit, zipping it up and going out there.
Nothing worse like in the movies.
We've got another good question from Dean Babcock. Thank you, Dean. How many employees could work in an OPF at any one time? The shuttle garage had how many?
Okay, in the earlier days when we were getting Columbia ready for its first flight, because we basically had to build a lot of it again that hadn't been completed in California, or we had to take it apart and put it all back together, because in our testing we wore out things before they ever flew and had to replace them. But there was literally hundreds of people in there. After we got into multiple flights and that, it was down to, and I don't know how many, because most of the engineers were not housed in the building. In the building were housed the technicians, the quality, and the management. All the others were in other support buildings that came over when their task was required. But had 200 technicians that were spread over 3 shifts over the 3 different buildings. So, some of them would be in OPF 2 on one day and working in OPF 1 another day and that. But it was that was the hands-on people. They had a lot of support people, safety, engineering, optics, all kinds of other people from other facilities that would come over. Especially, payloads were built down at the payload processing facility and then brought over. So the payload folks would come. And then once we got the payload put in the vehicle, we'd tell them, hit the road. We don't need you here anymore. We got your hardware.
Okay. Good question there. Thank you, Dean. And Mitch Rothman at Manned Space says fear of blood drifting through the cabin was one reason astronauts couldn't sleep in space until Apollo 10. Is that I've got a heart over that word of Mitchell's, that Manned Space there, last comment. One reason why astronauts couldn't couldn't blank space.
It doesn't say shave.
Shave.
Oh, shave. Thank you there. That word's covered up by a heart there.
Yeah.
So they didn't shave in space until Apollo 10 for the fear of blood drifting through the cabin.
Okay, makes sense, because they could use a razor and that in space, but a lot of them use the electric razor, just like the electric hair clippers and that had vacuum hooked up to it. So it caught all those little particles and didn't release them. But some of them wanted to use a razor, so they used shaving cream and razor, which, they didn't have water to rinse it in the sink. So, yeah, it all went into a paper towel.
Well, Lynn Feather says she liked our Band-Aid segment there.
Okay.
And no, I'm not going to let him shave me, Lynn, okay? We don't want blood flying around here. Terry, thanks a lot, buddy.
Sure.
What a nice little program here. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. It was the 1,110th episode of Stay Curious.
I told you would learn something you never knew before.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And
That's my claim to this show. I'll teach him something every show that he never heard of before.
and that's not easy to this space geek here that just absorbs it like a sponge, like all you did today. And we appreciate you watching today. Selvin, thank you for doing a great job on the board. Our Logan got a hold of me at the last minute here. Thank God you were here, because Marty's been on vacation. He'll be back Thursday to do a program, a little bit about his vacation. Don't know how much I'll get him on his face here, but we'll be hearing from him there. He's got some great pictures of his trip to the Cradle of Aviation up there on Long Island.
Okay.
A wonderful museum. That's the one that's got Sally Ride's statue in front, like this, holding a shuttle. So looking forward to my big brother Marty being back here. And tomorrow we're going to put in perspective the life of Karen Conklin. For you all, a lot of you know her because you've been in our museum and met her. Those of you that don't, we're going to share a little insight to this beautiful lady that lost her life and battled the cancer Sunday at age 65. And, damn cancer, we've all been touched with it. If you haven't, consider yourself very lucky, because it's something that I think more money should be poured into to try to combat. But anyway, we're going to talk about Karen's beautiful life, and hope you all join us for that. If you have something that you want to share about Karen Conklin, you can message me on Facebook, and I'll certainly look into that. Or I'm easy to find on our email is marq@americanspacemuseum.org. So,
And I want to thank all of you for watching the show, and especially for the questions. Like I said, it makes it easier on me because I know what you're interested in and that. And I want to especially thank my family for watching the show, because all over the country they're watching. So
all over the world.
Yeah.
Travis in Poland there.
Yeah.
And thank you very much. And this show would not have happened was it not been for Karen Conklin and her confidence in me. And then turning us loose, she actually named it Stay Curious. And I'll tell you all about that, how that came about tomorrow on our episode dedicated to our fallen leader, Karen Conklin. So once again, Terry, thank you so much for
yes, sir.
I'll take a handshake instead of a hug. Thank you for fixing me up there, and Zero G. And to the rest of you, I'm Marquette saying we can't wait to see you tomorrow to bridge the space between us.